A new season, presenting a sequence of 6 of Shakespeare's plays, is a powerful magnet. People queued for over 30 hours for gallery seats for the opening performance of The Two Gentlemen of Verona. Newlywed Patrick Allen and Sarah Lawson seen arriving. Diana Wynyard was there.
By now we have gotten used to it. Distinct British actors and actresses nominated at the Oscars for playing distinct British characters. From members of the working and upper class to symbols of strength during wartime and, of course, historic personalities such as politicians and royal figures.
Look at me! Look at me! How dare you! Close your eyes!
The intensity of this relationship varied from time to time. From the feeling that the Oscars became too generous to British productions, not even Ethel Barrymore could pretend to be happy about Hamlet's Oscar win, to periods when the Academy couldn't get enough of British performers and stories.
The majesty and grandeur of the English language is the greatest possession we have.
And all of this did not start suddenly at some point in the Academy's history, but began right away at some of the first awards. At the third presentation of the Oscars, George Arliss won the Best Actor award for playing British Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli. And 3 years later, the first true British invasion hit the Academy with the combination of Cavalcade and The Private Life of Henry VIII. With his Best Actor win, Charles Laughton became the second actor to win the Oscar for playing a famous real-life British figure in the Academy's 6-year existence, and laid the foundation for many other performers to follow his footsteps.
So what I say to you now, as your Queen...
Congratulations. Thanks.
The Queen of England does not attend exhibitions of public lewdness.
I will never abdicate. I am the Queen. I will die the Queen.
The Best Actress category in 1933 did maybe not feature a royal figure among its nominees, but if you are looking for the godmother of the Maggie Smiths, Glenda Jacksons, Greer Garsons, Judi Denchs, Vanessa Redgraves or Deborah Carrs in this category, you have to look no further than to Diana Wynyard. Okay, she was not the first British actress nominated in this category. That honor belongs to Lynn Fontanne, who was nominated 1 year prior for The Guardsman. But nationality was not a relevant part of her character, and due to her marriage to American actor Alfred Lunt, she was a regular presence on Broadway and American stages. Therefore, she was not prominently British in the same way as Diana Wynyard. And then of course Corinne Griffiths received a nomination for playing the very British Emma Hamilton in The Divine Lady, but as Griffiths was American and the movie a silent picture, we can skip her too. No, it was the work of English stage actress Diana Wynyard that created the prototype of the quintessential British character in this category. As Jane Marriott, a wife and mother of the British upper class, who sees the tragedies and the happiness of her life intertwined with important moments in British history. If you look at the history of the Best Picture category, you will probably not find a movie more British than Cavalcade, based on a popular play by Noel Coward. It covers the years from 1900 to 1932 and how events such as World War I or the sinking of the Titanic influenced the life of the Marriott family and their servants. To be honest, while I'm usually a big fan of historical epics, Cavalcade is not for me. It is in fact my least favorite Best Picture winner. The whole thing is a very lifeless string of historical events and out-of-place musical numbers that never fit into the story organically. We are not told of a family and their lives over time, but rather the script only wants to put as many historical events as possible in the story and simply uses the family as a plot device to string these events together. As it is, the plot of Cavalcade does not have anything interesting to offer or anything to say. Obviously, apart from the expected statement that everything was better in the past, when rich people were upstairs, the servants downstairs, and they weren't there at all. But obviously, audiences and critics in 1933 reacted much differently than me. Reviewers called it the best film of the year and one of the best to ever come to the screen, and that it wonderfully broke the limits of the stage to become a sweeping epic that few who saw would ever forget. It was furthermore described as vibrant and emotionally exciting, and Frank Lloyd was also praised for his masterful direction. And it was also popular with audiences as well as the movie industry. Cavalcade was a big financial success and won Oscars for Best Picture and Best Director. But the Academy did not only like the movie Cavalcade, but also its female star.
Well, it's too late now. I'm set in the habit of loving you. I shall never know the truth.
Diana Wynyard started acting in 1925 at London's Globe Theatre. She first appeared as understudies and in smaller roles, but quickly gained prominence as a talented artist and appeared in prominent roles at the West End and as a member of the Liverpool Repertory Company. An important step in her career came when she appeared in London in a one-night benefit performance of The Devil Passes. Due to her acclaimed performance, she was invited to reprise her role when the play moved to a Broadway engagement in 1932. Her stage work in New York then caught the attention of MGM, which, like all other studios, was always looking for new and experienced theatre actors who could also make it on a big screen. And so Diana Wynyard made her movie debut the same year in Rasputin and the Empress. While this movie is largely forgotten, this was probably one of the most challenging movie debuts imaginable, as she had to share the screen with three acting giants and notorious scene stealers: John, Lionel and Ethel Barrymore. Critics immediately became interested in this new English actress and stated that she beautifully held her own against the Barrymores without ever losing her natural poise. While working on Rasputin and the Empress, Diana Wynyard was also cast in the part of Jane Marriott in Cavalcade, often working on the two pictures on the same day. And while the earlier released Rasputin and the Empress created a first wave of excitement, Cavalcade was seen as her A Star is Born moment. Diana Wynyard was described as the standout of the cast, infinitely appealing and touching and a positive revelation, restrained, magnificent, dignified and thoroughly feminine. Critics said that her performance was in every detail that of a true artist, and she was hailed as one of Hollywood's greatest discoveries in years, whose work would be seen as the definite portrait of the gentlewoman everywhere.
Something seems to have gone out of all of us, and I'm not sure that I like what's left.
And of course she was also called the next Garbo, which maybe should just be seen as a description for every new actress during the 30s. But most of all, the success of Cavalcade and the seriousness of her role combined with her previous success on the stage gave her a distinct aura of a dramatic prestige actress, with what many hoped a bright future in Hollywood.
I suppose this war will end someday.
Why, of course, in a few months.
Perhaps it'll be over before you get there.
It was assumed that she would follow the footsteps of other celebrated stage performers and change the focus of her work to the screen. Just like Helen Hayes, another giant of the stage who had won an Oscar a year before and was now starring in A Farewell to Arms. And indeed, the movie career of Diana Wynyard does resemble that of Helen Hayes in certain ways, but not in the way Hollywood had hoped for. Both actresses followed their first dates with Oscar with various movie roles, but after a while their screen appearances began to decrease and ultimately they only appeared sporadically in movies or on TV. It's clear that both of them preferred the stage to the screen and spent most of their professional energy on this medium. Unlike Helen Hayes, however, Diana Wynyard did not make an Oscar comeback during her career, but she did originate a part on screen that was turned into an Oscar-winning role a couple of years later.
What do you suppose the servants are for?
To serve us, I suppose, dear.
What do you suppose the servants are for?
To do things, to serve us, I suppose.
Are you suggesting this is a knife I have in my hand? Have you gone mad, my sane husband?
Are you suggesting that this is a knife I hold in my hand? Have you gone mad, my husband?
However, by this time, Oscar had already forgotten about Diana Wynyard and she obviously never intended to return to Hollywood, saying, "I have never been especially interested in motion pictures because I was told at home that I did not photograph well, and that she missed the presence of an audience." After World War II, she was one of the primary stage actresses in England and appointed Commander of the British Empire in 1953. She later had a supporting part in the TV production Meyerling opposite Audrey Hepburn and played her last film role in Island in the Sun in 1957 as the mother of James Mason. She unfortunately died from renal disease in 1964 at the age of 58. But let's focus on her celebrated performance in Cavalcade. The Oscar nomination for her work shows that the Academy responded very favorably to certain characters right away. In this case, it is the supporting and suffering wife and mother. This archetype has been a part of the Best Actress category since its inauguration and continues to be a part of it in some way or another to this day.
that your wife doesn't write?
In 1933, the Academy was still in the process of finding itself, and the selection of Best Actress winners and nominees shows as many different styles and attitudes as the political and social atmosphere of the late 20s and early 30s, when established traditions clashed with waves of new trends. Movies were also caught in this uncertainty, tackling more daring themes than maybe ever before, but soon limited again by the restrictions of the Hays Code. And so it's not surprising that in the early years of the Academy, we see nominations for so-called bad girls or women enjoying more freedom and liberties than ever before, but also for characters who represented motherhood and the familiarity of traditions. A look back at simpler and apparently better times with clear role allocations. And the character of Jane fits right into these themes. The audience follows her life for more than 30 years, but she never becomes an independent character, only existing in relation to her family. She worries about her husband going to war, she worries about her son going to war, she is sad when Queen Victoria dies, and she is sad when her sons die. Of course, I don't want to dismiss Diana Wynyard's performance based on the character she's playing or the movie she is appearing in. The suffering wife might be a stereotypical role, but it can still offer a lot of opportunities for an actress. And at the same time, just because Cavalcade itself lacks ambition and life, this does not mean that it cannot contain an exciting and challenging performance. And I want to say right away that from a physical point of view, Diana Wynyard flawlessly fits into the environment of Cavalcade's upstairs world. Her body language smoothly expresses a certain aura of superiority without appearing snobbish or out of place. There is a natural sense of belonging to this upper class in her work, of inhabiting its unwritten rules and traditions.
No servants, no food in the house, no nothing. Oh, well, that awful journey was never going to end. Oh!
Her performance is therefore always at its best in smaller, almost throwaway moments that don't put her in the foreground but instead happen casually as part of her character. Like quietly disapproving an inappropriate emotional outburst by one of her servants, or refusing a hand when she's denied the respect that she feels entitled to.
Pleased to see you again, milady, I'm sure. Welcome to our oval. Oh. Proud and naughty, are we?
Alfred, stop it, stop it! Ellen, dear Ellen, I'm so very, very sorry. I quite understand, quite. I'll come and see you again soon.
And what I also want to praise is the maturity of her work. I was actually surprised to find out that Diana Wynyard was only 1 year older than co-nominee Katharine Hepburn. The nature of their parts, the young ingenue and the mistress of a big household with 2 children, obviously strengthens this effect, but Diana Wynyard again handles these tasks of the character very well. Her role as a wife and mother is never doubted, and she displays the upper class mentality of her part very well, showing a certain affection for her children and her husband, but always in a restrained and calm manner without any grand emotions.
Oh, Joey, you awful child, how dare you make such a noise? Oh, darling, you haven't got a pain, have you? I want to see you here. Little boys mustn't. What would you say if I spanked you soundly and sent you to bed?
I would say old woman that lived in the shoes.
And what would you say if I spanked you again for calling your mother an old woman?
I wouldn't say nothing.
However, while her personality suits the part of Jane maybe well, Diana Wynyard's acting unfortunately does little to illuminate her as a character, and actually harms any chance for Jane to become a three-dimensional creation. Even though primarily a stage actress, Diana Wynyard does not exaggerate her performance, but did adjust her style for the camera. However, she unfortunately has absolutely no sense on how to make that style seem natural.
Play louder! Play louder!
Soldiers of the Queen, wounded and dying, suffering for their Queen.
Her whole performance feels strangely artificial, with no resemblance to a real human being. She cannot make any of her lines seem to be created by Jane, but instead always remains an actress delivering written words.
How sweet of them to think of giving us flowers on New Year's Eve.
Rather touching.
So touching that I almost want to cry. Take care of yourself, my darling. I felt you go when I said that bit about Joey. Oh, Robert! Robert! Starvation, disease, and horror. And Robert, I can't bear to think of it, and I can't stop thinking.
She gets no guidance from director Frank Lloyd on how to make her work feel less affected and stilted, and every dramatic situation in Jane's life gets the same reaction from Diana Wynyard. A vague stare with overly dramatic line readings that denies any plausibility.
What is it? What's happened?
You needn't worry about Fanny and Joe. He won't be able to come back. He's dead.
Peace and happiness for you, my darling.
Please God.
Peace and happiness, always.
There is furthermore no development in those reactions. It doesn't matter if Jane is reacting to the announcement of war, the death of her son, or is simply scared about what could happen to her husband. No matter if it's anxiety, sadness, shock, or determination. The reaction is always the same.
Oh, how wonderful our marriage has been.
Has. Give the future a chance.
We don't know if there is to be a future. Now, I feel listless and sad. As though her death were a personal loss.
It's a style that resembles her famous contemporary Norma Shearer, who also used this one-stare-fits-all kind of acting, but Norma Shearer had the necessary screen presence and star power to make it work. Diana Wynyard unfortunately remains pale and uninteresting throughout Cavalcade.
Drink to the war then. I'm not going to, I can't. Rule Britannia, send us victorious, happy and glorious. Drink, Joey. You're only a baby still, but you're old enough for war. Drink as the Germans are doing tonight, to victory and defeat and stupid, tragic sorrow, but don't ask me to do it, please.
Diana Wynyard obviously also gets no help from the script, which drops her very often during the second half of the movie and only uses the Marriott family as a plot device for its presentation of historic moments. But she does not even try to give any depth to her part. Nothing that happens to Jane has any effect on her. The tragedies of her life come and go without touching her beyond specific scenes. The audience might follow Jane for more than 30 years, but it's impossible to see any kind of development in her.
Let us drink to our sons, who made part of the pattern, and to our hearts that died with them. Let us drink to the spirit of gallantry and courage that made a strange heaven out of unbelievable hell. And let us drink to the hope that one day this country of ours, which we love so much, will find dignity and greatness and peace again.
The thing is, as lifeless as Diana Wynyard feels, it is not difficult to imagine her as an engaging stage presence. And I can also easily see her as an interesting movie presence with a bit more experience in front of the camera. But what could have been an interesting study of human development unfortunately turned into a flat and artificial portrayal, and Diana Wynyard's acting lets every opportunity go by and actively harms any chance for Jane to become engaging or real. So hopefully the next nominee has more to offer.